Hello, this is the literary and jury charge portion of the 100 class. We're going to start out with a speech. Ready? Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Ed Smith. I am Vice Chairman of the Redevelopment Board. I would like to speak on behalf of the board, in fact, for Mr. Jones, the chairman. He is unable to be here tonight at this time, but will probably join us later. In order to save time, I have put together some pictures so that you can look them over. They are right here on my computer. I know that I presented you some of them earlier, but these are more. I thought it would be useful to review some of the things that the board is doing, which depends so much on the community development funding. So I wanted to show you the rest of these pictures. The map on the screen indicates a number of activities that the board is involved with. You probably can't distinguish all of the words that are on this picture, but the line which weaves its way horizontally through the center of town is Main Street. One of the most basic tasks that the board has undertaken is the revitalization of the entire stretch of Main Street, particularly in 3 spots: East Jackson, Jackson Center, and Jackson Heights. The board is requesting a total of $550,000 for capital and planning money to implement this project. Also shown in this picture here, essentially, are blue dots. These blue dots indicate buildings that are being studied for reuse. Another project that is being undertaken by the board is shown in, I think, red dots or green dots, and they indicate model blocks. Model blocks is a program that I think you are familiar with. They are selected blocks that may occur anywhere along Main Street where architectural design studies have been undertaken for the specific purpose of assisting shop owners and shopkeepers in the upgrading of their own facilities. Let me be a little bit more specific about various components of the program. First, the Main Street Revitalization Program. We think of it very simply in 3 terms. That is, that which happens in Jackson Center, that which is taking place in East Jackson, and that which takes place in Jackson Heights. The check marks on the chart indicate that each one of those 3 areas qualifies for 2 kinds of funding. One is urban systems, and the second is community development block grant or CDBG funds, which are the funds that we are asking for tonight. So, the improvements undertaken in the Main Street revitalization study would include traffic control, some improved parking, planting, lighting, perhaps median strips, and sidewalk paving. The usual feature about this year's program is that the urban systems funding is available to the town of Jackson if the town of Jackson undertakes its own planning. It is expected that when the plans are complete, we will be applying for as much as $2 million worth of urban systems money. That is entirely outside of the town of Jackson, because many of the improvements do not qualify as legitimate urban systems funding. It is very possible that some of the improvements will have to be paid for by the town of Jackson, and it is for those improvements that we are requesting CDBG funds. Looking more explicitly at just what is being proposed, this is a view of different pictures showing the plain view of Jackson Center. You can see the Commons being a large gray paved area with trees scattered throughout it. More important is the horizontal gray line, which represents Main Street. The line vertically to the left is the intersection with Pleasant Street. This particular slide shows that some sort of median or divider down the center might be appropriate for that portion of Main Street shown in this picture. The combination of a divider, planting along the sidewalks on both sides, the north and the south sides of Main Street, elimination of the turn from Main onto Walnut Street, revision of the intersection near the Walnut Towers, planting along that same strip, possibly the introduction of a left-hand turn from Main Street onto Oak. All of these are traffic improvements, plus the actual retiming of the signal at Pleasant Street and Main Street. These are all part of the urban systems improvements that are being studied just for Jackson Center. A blow-up of the intersection just at Pleasant and Main Street indicates more than just the divider down the center of the street. Contemplated is a relocation of bus stops. The planting strip down the center would have trees in it. There would be a grass berm. There would be places where the cars could break through that planted median strip in order to make, for example, a left-hand turn heading west on Main Street to connect to South Street. This is indicative of the kind of improvements that the board has been supporting and doing over the last 3 years. And this particular section of Jackson Center really represents one of the last pieces in the jigsaw to connect those improvements that exist already from in front of the town hall all the way to Broadway Plaza. Here is a sketch by the landscape architect of that portion of Main Street when the dividing median strip is provided and trees are continued down there as has already been started. The second area that we are looking at is East Jackson, where the same ideas are applied. Sure, you got a great workout there. That was 10 minutes of straight writing. Great job. I have a story here called The Gift of Gab. Here we go. Although she told me not to talk to strangers, my mother always did. At the checkout line, browsing through handbags during a slow elevator ride, when everyone else was seriously squinting at the buttons at airports, football games, and the beach. It didn't matter where. My mom loved to gab. Thankfully, I only took her advice when it came to menacing strangers. I believe I'm better for it. My mother's habit of striking up conversations with people next to her may bring a smile to my eyes now, but it proved rather embarrassing during my tender teenage years. Lynn is getting her first one too, she confided to a woman who was also shopping with her adolescent daughter in the bra section of the Kohl's department store. I contemplated running and hiding under a nearby terry cloth bathrobe, but instead I turned crimson and hissed "Mother" between gritted teeth. I felt only slightly better when the girl's mother said, "We're trying to find one for Sarah, but they're all too big." Not everyone responded when Mom made an observation and tried to spark a brief discussion. Some people gave her a tight-lipped half grin, then turned away. A few completely ignored her. Whenever I was with her during those times, I could see that she was a little hurt, but she'd shrug it off and we'd continue on our way. More often than not, however, I would wander off somewhere and come back to find her gabbing away. There were occasions when I was concerned that I'd lost her in the crowd, but then I'd hear her singing, sing-song laugh, and a comment like, "Yes, yes, me too." Through these spontaneous chats, my mother taught me that our world is much too large or too small, take your pick, not to have time to reach out to one another. She reminded me that as women, we enjoy a special kind of kinship, even if we're really not all that alike. In the most mundane things, there are common threads that bind us. It may be the reason we like paper versus plastic, or why a navy sweater is never a bad buy, or why the national anthem still gives us goosebumps. One of the last memories of my mother when she was in the hospital and a few hours from dying from the breast cancer that had ravaged her down to 85 pounds is of her smiling weakly and talking to her nurse about how to best plant tulip bulbs. I stood silently in the doorway, wanting to cry, but feeling such a surge of love and warmth. She taught me to see spring in others. I'll never forget it, especially now when I turn to someone and say, "Don't you just love it when..." Okay. I've got another drill here for you. Actually, it's not a drill. It's a paragraph. Okay. Here we go. Ready? The new law school will open on Saturday, August 22nd. Should we send in our completed application tomorrow, or is it too early to enroll? Please give this matter your immediate attention so we can take care of the paperwork with little or no delay. Also, could you find out the answers to the following questions for us? 1. Should we handwrite or type our applications? 2. Is the email address and telephone number the same? 3. Who can give us more information about classes if we need it other than yourself? 4. Do we need only 60 hours in ethics of law? 5. Who sent the material in the yellow envelope? 6. The application says must have completed 100 hours in English. Does English 101 and General Ed English classes fulfill this requirement? I shall look forward to hearing from you. All right. I'm going to do some little bit of legal. Okay. You're going to hear testimony, which I write that as T, initial T, final M. Exhibit, X-I-B-T, you can squeeze that. Inferences, counsel, I write that as K-O-U-N. Closing, arguments, examine, indirect, evidence, E-F-D, circumstantial, tangible, identification, I write that as F-I-G-S, hearsay, H-A-E-R-S, and document, I write that as D-O-M-T. Here we go, ready? Testimony and exhibits are introduced in a case to prove certain facts. Testimony is given by witnesses and may include opinions, facts, and inferences. Circumstantial evidence is indirect evidence. Documents and tangible items are presented in the court as exhibits. Exhibits that are accepted by the court are marked for identification and may be received in evidence. hearsay evidence may be permitted in court. At the close of the case, counsel may give closing arguments. The jury charge is given to the jury by the judge. The jury must then examine and weigh the evidence that was presented in this case. There's two more, one brief and one phrase that I didn't see before I started that I want to give you. Marked for identification is MOID, MOID, and examine is initial X. Okay, all right, that concludes our literary and jury charge for the 100 class.